Again, in this verse are the words Jnana Sim Achuta Bala. Jnana Sim, the sword of knowledge, is given by Krishna, and when one serves the Guru and Krishna in order to hold the sword of Krishna's instructions. Baladeva gives one strength. Baladeva is Nityananda, Rajendra Nandana Ye, Sachi Sutta Haida Se, Balaram Haida Nitai. This Balarama, comes with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and both of them are so merciful that in this age of Kali, one may very easily take shelter of their lotus feet. They come especially to deliver the fallen souls of this age. Papi tapi yata chila, harinama udarila. Their weapon in Sankirtan. Harinama. Thus, one should accept the one should accept the sword of knowledge from Krishna and be strong with the mercy of Balaram. We are therefore worshipping Krishna Balaram in Vrindavana. In the Mundaka Upanishad 3.2.4, it is said, Nayam Atmabala Hinena Labhyo, Na Cha Pramadat Tapaso Vakri Alingat, Etar Upayar Yatate Yas Tu Vidvams Tasyaisa Atma Visate Brahma Dhamma. One cannot gain the goal of life without the mercy of Balarama. Sri Narottamadas Thakura therefore says, Nitya Yera Karuna Habe Raje Radha Krishna Pabe. When one receives the mercy of Balarama, Nityananda, one can attain the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna very easily. Say Sambandha Nahi Yara Rita Janma Gela Tara Vidya Kulehi Karibe Tara. If one has no connection with Nitai, Balarama, then even though one is a very learned scholar or jnani or has taken birth in a very respectable family, these assets will not help him. We must therefore conquer the enemies of Krishna consciousness with the strength received from Baladeva. Text 46. Otherwise, if one does not take shelter of Achyuta and Baladeva, then the senses, acting as the horses, and the intelligence, acting as the driver, both being prone to material contamination, inattentively bring the body, which acts as the chariot, to the path of sense gratification. When one is thus attached again by the roads of Vishaya, eating, sleeping, and mating, the horses and chariot driver are thrown into the blinding dark well of material existence. And one is again put into a dangerous and extremely fearful situation of repeated birth and death. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Without the protection of Gaur Nitai, Krishna, and Balaram, one cannot get out of the dark well of ignorance in material existence. This is indicated here by the word nochet, which means that one will always remain in the dark well of material existence. The living entity must get strength from Nitai Gora or Krishna Balarama. Without the mercy of Nitai Gora, there is no way to come out of this dark well of ignorance. As stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 1.2. One day Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sahodito Gododaye Pushpa Vanto Chitro Sando Tamo Nudo. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Chaitanya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, and Lord Nityananda, who are like the sun and moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Goda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. This material world is a dark well of ignorance. The fallen soul in this dark well must take shelter of the lotus feet of Gora Nitai, for thus he can easily emerge from material existence without their strength, simply by attempting to get out of the clutches of matter by speculative knowledge will be insufficient. Text 42. Pravritam cha nivritam.
42?
I mean 47, I'm sorry. Text 47. Pravritam cha nivritam cha divi vidham karma vaidikam avartete pravritena Nivriten anasute ritam. According to the Vedas, there are two kinds of activities, pavriti and nivriti. Pavriti activities involve raising oneself from a lower to a higher condition of materialistic life, whereas nivriti means the cessation of material desire. Through the poverty activities, one suffers from material entanglement, but by nivriti activities, one is purified and becomes fit to enjoy eternal blissful life. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 16.7, Pavritim cha nivritim cha jana na vidur asura. The asuras, non-devotees, cannot distinguish between poverty and liberty. Whatever they like, they do. Such persons think themselves independent of the strong material nature, and therefore they are irresponsible and do not care to act piously. Indeed, they do not distinguish between pious and impious activity. Bhakti, of course, does not depend on pious or impious activity. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.6, Savai Pumsa Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktira Oksajay Ahaitakiya Pratihata Yayatma Suprasiditi. The supreme occupation, Dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. Nonetheless, those who act piously have a better chance to become devotees. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7.16, Chaturvidha Bhajante Mam, Jnana, Jana, Sukritino, Virjana, O Arjuna. Four kinds of pious men render devotional service unto me. One who takes to devotional service, even with some material motive, is considered pious. And because he has come to Krishna, he will gradually come to the stage of bhakti. Then, like Dhruva Maharaj, he will refuse to accept any material benediction from the Lord. Swamin Karto Kritarto Smi Varam Na Yache. Therefore, even if one is materially inclined, one may take to the shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna and Balarama, or Gora and Nitai, so that he will very soon be purified of all material desires. Shipam Bhavati
Dharmatma.
Dharmatma Satvach Chantim Nikachati. As soon as one is free from inclinations toward pious and impious activities, he becomes a perfect candidate for returning home back to Godhead. Texts 48 and 49. The ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices known as Agnihotra Yagya, Darsha Yagya, Purnamasa Yagya, Chaturmasa Yagya, Pasu Yajna or Yagya, and Soma Yagya are all symptomized by the killing of animals and the burning of many valuables, especially food grains, all for the fulfillment of material desires and the creation of anxiety. Performing such sacrifices, worshipping Vasudeva, and performing the ceremony of Bali Harana, which all supposedly constitute the goal of life, as well as constructing temples for demigods, building resting houses and gardens, digging wells for the distribution of water, establishing booths for the distribution of food, and performing activities for public welfare. These are all symptomized by attachment to material desires.
So, Maharaj, here Chaturmasya Yajna
Yeah.
is also part of the materialistic approach. So, we should not be doing, right?
Well, yeah.
I believe Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj used to do, or he did it once or something like that. Is that right?
I have no idea. Where are you reading that from?
Chaturmasya?
Well, that the fact that
Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj.
yeah, that he did not do it.
No,
Or that he did.
He did. That is, I heard. I can search that.
It says the ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices known as Agnihotra Yagya, Darsha Yagya, Purnamasa Yagya, Chaturmasya Yagya, that's what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Pasu Yagya and Soma Yagya are all symptomized by the killing of animals and the burning of many valuables, Well, then we don't kill animals, so uh, uh, these are types of sacrifices that we don't perform. And the burning of many valuables, especially food grains, all for the fulfillment of material desires and the creation of anxiety. Well, who wants to uh,
Yeah, I think the
who
thank,
wants to have that?
yeah.
That's completely negative.
So I think it's not Chaturmasya Yajna that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj did. He because the Yajna Chaturmasya Yajna is different from he observed Vrata of simplicity, increased austerity, and devotional focus during the 4 months of Chaturmasya. So that's more the other side, which is much more intense devotional service.
Okay.
So he encouraged disciples to follow the Chaturmasya restrictions, simple diet,
Where are
no.
you reading?
This is online.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, actually, it's all right, but it says, well, here it says the ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices known as Agni Hotra Yajna, Darsa Yajna, Purnamasa Yajna, Chaturmasya Yajna, Pasu Yajna, and Soma Yajna are all symptomized by killing of animals and the burning of many valuables, especially food grains, all for the fulfillment of material desires and the creation of anxiety. Well, obviously, that's not the purpose of a devotee. Performing such sacrifices, worshiping Vaishvadeva, and performing the ceremony of Bali Harana, which all supposedly constitute the goal of life, as well as constructing temples for demigods, building resting houses and gardens, digging wells for the distribution of water, establishing booths for the distribution of food, and performing activities for public welfare. These are all symptomized by attachment to material desires. There it is. It's all
Yeah.
not Krishna consciousness, symptomized by attachment to material desires. Okay, text 50 and 51. My dear King Yudhisthira, when oblations of ghee and food grains like barley and sesame are offered in sacrifice, they turn into celestial smoke, which carries one to successfully higher planetary systems like the kingdom of Duma, Ratri, Krishnapaksha, Dakshinam, and ultimately the moon. Then, however, the performers of sacrifice descend again to earth to become herbs, creepers, vegetables, and food grains. These are eaten by different living entities and turned to semen, which is injected into female bodies. Thus, one takes birth again and again. So, this is all not very, let's say, uh, useful for having a spiritual life. Purport. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita 9:21. Te tam bhukva swargalokam vishalam shine punye martilokam vishanti. Evam trayi dharmam anuprapana gata gatam kama labhate. Labhante. Labhante. When those who follow the Pravriti Marga have enjoyed heavenly sense pleasure, they return to the mortal planet again. Thus, through the Vedic principles, they achieve only flickering happiness. Following the Pravriti Marga, the living entity who desires to be promoted to the higher planetary systems performs sacrifices regularly, and how he goes up and comes down again is described here in Srimad Bhagavatam, as well as in the Bhagavad Gita. It is also said, Tri Gunya Vishaya Veda. The Vedas deal mainly with the three modes of material nature. The Vedas, especially three Vedas, namely Sama, Yajur, and Rig, vividly describe this process of ascending to the higher planets and returning. But Krishna advises Arjuna, Trigunya Vishaya Veda Nistragunya Bhavarjuna. One has to transcend these three modes of material nature, and then one will be released from this cycle of birth and death. Otherwise, although one may be promoted to a higher planetary system, such as Chandraloka, one must again come down. Shine Punye Martyalokam Vishanti. After one's enjoyment due to pious activities is finished, one must return to this planet in rainfall and first take birth as a plant or creeper, which is eaten by various animals, including human beings, and turn to semen. This semen is injected into the female body, and thus the living entity takes birth. Those who return to earth in this way take birth, especially in higher families like those of Brahmanas. It may be remarked in this connection that even the modern so called scientists who are going to the moon, they have never gone and they're never going to go, but anyway, who are going to the moon are not able to stay there, but are returning to their laboratories. Therefore, whether one goes to the moon by modern mechanical arrangements or by performing pious activities, one must return to earth. That is clearly stated in this verse and explained in Bhagavad Gita. Even if one goes to the higher planetary system, Yanti Deva Rata Devan, one's place there is not secure. One must return to Martyaloka. Abrahma Bhuvanal Loka Punar Avartina Rujana. Aside from the moon, even if one goes to Brahmaloka, one must return. Yam prapyana nivartante tad dhamma paramam mama. But if one goes back home, back to Godhead, he need not return to this material world. Okay, text 52. A twice born Brahmana, Rija, gains his life by the grace of his parents through the process of purification known as Garbhodana. There are also other processes of purification until the end of life, when the funeral ceremony at Yesti Kriya is performed. Thus, in due course, a qualified Brahmana becomes uninterested in materialistic activities and sacrifices. But he offers the sensual sacrifices in full knowledge into the working senses which are illuminated by the fire of knowledge. But he offers the sensual sacrifices in full knowledge into the working senses, which are illuminated by the fire of knowledge. Purport. Those interested in materialistic activities remain in the cycle of birth and death. Pavriti marga, or the inclination to stay in the material world, to enjoy varieties of sense gratification, has been explained in the previous verse. Now, in this verse, it is explained that one who has perfect Brahminical knowledge rejects the process of elevation to higher planets and accepts Nibriti Marga. In other words, he prepares himself to go back home, back to Godhead. Those who are not Brahmanas but atheists do not know what is Pravriti Marga or Nivriti Marga. They simply want to obtain pleasure at any cost. Our Krishna consciousness movement is therefore training devotees to give up the Pavriti Marga and accept the Nivriti Marga in order to return home back to Godhead. This is a little difficult to understand, but it is very easy if one takes the Krishna consciousness seriously and tries to understand Krishna. A Krishna conscious person can understand that performing yajna according to the karma kanda system is a useless waste of time, and that merely giving up the karma kanda and accepting the process of speculation is also unfruitful. Therefore, Narottama Dasa Thakura has sung in his Prema Bhakti Chandrika, Karma Kanda Jnana Kanda Kevala Vishera Bandha Amrita Valiya Yeva Kaya Nana Yoni Sadaf Pire Kadarya Bhakshana Kare Tara Janma Adha Pateyaya. A life of karma kanda or jnana kanda is like a poisoned pot, and one who takes to such a life is doomed. In the karma kanda system, one is destined to accept birth and death again and again. Similarly, with jnana kanda, one falls down again to this material world. Only worship of the Supreme Person offers one the safety of going back home, back to Godhead. Text 53. The mind is always agitated by waves of acceptance and rejection. Therefore, all the activities of the senses should be offered into the mind, which should be offered into one's words. Then one's words should be offered into the aggregate of all alphabets, which should be offered into the concise form Omkara. Omkara should be offered into the point Bindu. Offered into the point Bindu, comma. Bindu into the vibration of sound, comma, and that vibration into the life there. Then the living entity, who is all that remains, should be placed in Brahman, the Supreme. This is the process of sacrifice. Wow, they make everything complicated here. At the end, it'll say, yes, but if you simply chant Hare Krishna, you surpass all these things. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The mind is always agitated by acceptance and rejection, which are compared to mental waves that are constantly tossing. The living entity is floating in the waves of material existence because of his forgetfulness. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur has therefore sung in his Gita-vali, Miche Mayaravase Yache Se Kacha Harudubai. My dear mind, under the influence of Maya, you are being carried away by the waves of rejection and acceptance. Simply take shelter of Krishna. Jiva Krishna Dasa E Vishwasa Karleta Ara Dukkha Nai. If we simply regard the lotus feet of Krishna as our ultimate shelter, we shall be saved from these waves of Maya, which are variously exhibited in mental and sensual activities and the agitation of rejection and acceptance. Krishna instructs in Bhagavad Gita 1866, Sarvadharmam Parityaja Mamekam Saranam Braja Aham Tvam Sarvapapi Yo Mukti Sami Mansaja. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. Therefore, if we simply place ourselves at the lotus feet of Krishna by taking to Krishna consciousness and keeping always in touch with him by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, there it is, we need not take much trouble in arranging to return to the spiritual world. By the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is very easy. Harinama, Harinama, Harinameva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, 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 Tatiranyata. Okay. That's what I like. I like that, all right, everything seems to be very complicated. But in the end, by chanting Hare Krishna, it's actually very easy. Text 54. Second, text 54. On this path of ascent, meaning going up, the progressive living entity enters the different worlds of fire, the sun, the day, the end of the day, the bright fortnight, the full moon, and the passing of the sun in the north, along with their presiding demigods. When he enters Brahmaloka, he enjoys life for many millions of years. And finally, his material designation comes to an end. He then comes to a subtle designation from which he attains the causal designation, witnessing all previous states. Upon the annihilation of the causal state, he attains the pure state in which he identifies with the Supreme Soul. In this way, the living entity becomes transcendental. Sounds pretty complicated. I think it's just easier to chant Hare Krishna. Text 55. Devayanam idam prahur bhutva bhutvan nupur vasa atma iachi upasant upas upasantat, upasantatma, he atma sto na nivartate. This gradual process of elevation for self-realization is meant for those who are truly aware of the absolute truth. After repeated birth on this path, which is known as Devayana, one attains these consecutive stages. One who is completely free from all material desires, being situated in the self, need not traverse the path of repeated birth and death. Yeah, so therefore, you don't have to do the gradual process of elevation for self realization. You can directly go to Krishna consciousness. Text 56. Even though situated in a material body, one who is fully aware of the paths known as Pitriyana and Devayana, and who thus opens his eyes in terms of Vedic knowledge, is never bewildered in this material world. Purport. Acharyavan Purusho Veda, one who is guided by the bona fide spiritual master, knows everything as stated in the Vedas, which set forth the standard of infallible knowledge. As recommended in Bhagavad Gita, Acharya Pasabam, one must approach the Acharya for real knowledge. Tadviganartam Sagurun Evabhigachet. One must approach the Acharya, for then one will receive perfect knowledge. When guided by the spiritual master, one attains the ultimate goal of life. Text 57. He who exists internally and externally at the beginning and end of everything and of all living beings as that which is enjoyable and as the enjoyer of everything, superior and inferior, is the supreme truth. He always exists as knowledge and the object of knowledge, as expression and the object of understanding, as darkness and as light. Thus he, the Supreme Lord, is everything. Here, purport, here the Vedic aphorism. Sarvam Klav Idam Brahma is explained. It is also explained in the Chapter Sloka Bhagavatam. Aham eva sam evagre. The Supreme Lord existed in the beginning. He exists after the creation and maintains everything. And after destruction, everything merges into him. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Prakritim Yanti Mamikam. Thus, the super soul is actually everything. In the conditioned soul state, we are bewildered in our understanding but in the perfect stage of liberation, we can understand that Krishna is the cause of everything. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme controller. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, for he is the prime cause of all causes. Brahma Samhita 5.1. This is the perfection of knowledge. Text 58. Abadito pihi abasa abaso. Yata vastu tayachita durga tatvad Yakam Tattvat Artha Vikalpitam. Although one may consider the reflection of the sun from a mirror to be false, it has its factual existence. According to prove, accordingly, to prove by speculative knowledge that there is no reality would be extremely difficult. Yeah. How can you prove that there is no reality? It's not possible. Purport. The impersonalists try to prove that the varieties in the vision of the empiric philosopher are false. The impersonalist philosophy, Vivartavada, generally cites the acceptance of a rope to be a snake as an example of this fact. According to this example, the varieties within our vision are false, just as a rope seen to be a snake is false. The Vaishnavas say, however, that although the idea that the rope is a snake is false, the snake is not false. One has experience of a snake in reality, and therefore he knows that although the representation of the rope as a snake is false or illusory, there is a snake in reality. Similarly, this world, which is full of varieties, is not false. It is a reflection of the reality in the Vaikuntha world and the spiritual world. The reflection of the sun from a mirror is nothing but light within darkness. Thus, although it is not exactly sunlight, without the sunlight, the reflection would be impossible. Similarly, the varieties of this world would be impossible unless there were a real prototype in the spiritual world. The Mayavadi philosopher cannot understand this, but a real philosopher must be convinced that light is not possible at all without a background of sunlight. Thus, the jugglery of words used by the Mayavadi philosopher to prove that this material world is false may amaze inexperienced children, but a man with full knowledge knows perfectly well that there cannot be any existence without Krishna. Therefore, a Vaishnava insists on a platform of somehow or other accepting Krishna. Tasmat cannot be upayena mana Krishna nivesayat. When we rise our unmixed faith to the lotus feet of Krishna, everything is revealed. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita 7.1, Maya Shakta Manakparta Yogam Yanjamadasraya Asamsayam Samagramam Yata Yasyasi Tach Shrinu. Now hear, O son of Pritha, Arjuna, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. Simply by raising one's staunch faith in Krishna and his instructions, one can understand reality without a doubt. Asamsayam samagramam. One can understand how Krishna how Krishna's material and spiritual energies are working, and how he is present everywhere, although everything is not him. This philosophy of Achintya Veda Aveda, inconceivable oneness and difference, is the perfect philosophy enunciated by the Vaishnavas. Everything is an emanation from Krishna, but it is not that everything must therefore be worshipped. Speculative knowledge cannot give us reality as it is, but will continue to be nefariously imperfect. So called scientists try to prove that there is no God and that everything is happening because of the laws of nature. But this is imperfect knowledge because nothing can work unless directed by the Supreme Personality of God. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita 9.10 by the Lord Himself. Mayadakshena Prakriti Surite Sacharacharam Mahitananina Monteya Jagat Viparivartate. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. But by its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya gives this note: Durgat Tatvad Artha Vena Paramesh Naiva Kalpitam. The background of everything is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Vasudeva Sarvam Iti Samahatma Sudurlabha. This can be understood by a Mahatma who is perfect in knowledge. Such a Mahatma is rarely seen. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we'll stop here at the end of text 50, uh, uh, 58, and we'll pick up tomorrow, beginning on text 59. Okay, are there any questions or comments? Questions or comments?
Any questions online?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Haribol Mataji.
Prabhu, Maharaj, you were talking about Krishna being the cause of all causes, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then we have our karma, which we have to deal with. How are both correlated? Can you please explain? Thanks.
Well, how can they be correlated? You give up your karma and your engagement in sense gratification, and you take up devotional service in Krishna consciousness. So that's the whole point of learning from bona fide guru and learning from the great
Acharyas.
great teachers in the past. One gives up all mundane activities and engages only in spiritual activities to please the Lord. That way, you have a spiritual life, even in the material world. That's the and then of course from that let's say uh, uh, from that base you attain eternal life because you give up all types of sense gratification and engage only in pleasing the Lord by devotional service, chanting Hare Krishna and engaging in devotional service. That's why it says here, Maya Shakta Manakparta Yudam Yunjam Madashraya Asamsayam Samagramam Yata Yasyasi Tatshrinam. Now hear, O son of Prita, Arjuna, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. End of quote. And then it says, simply by raising one's staunch faith in Krishna and his instructions, one can understand reality without a doubt. Asamsayam Samagrama. One can understand how Krishna's material and spiritual energies are working and how he is present everywhere, although everything is not him. This philosophy of achintya veda abeda, or inconceivable oneness and difference, is the perfect philosophy enunciated by the Vaishnavas. Everything is an emanation from Krishna, but it is not that everything must therefore be worshipped. Speculative knowledge cannot give us reality as it is, but will continue to be nefariously imperfect. So-called scientists try to prove that there is no God and that everything is happening because of the laws of nature. But this is imperfect knowledge, because nothing can work unless directed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita 9.10 by the Lord himself. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and non-moving beings. By its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya gives this note. The background of everything is the Supreme Personality of God, Vasudeva. Vasudeva Sarvam Iti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. This can be understood by a Mahatma who is perfect in knowledge. Such a Mahatma is rarely seen. Okay, so the main point to understand is that the entire material nature is working under Krishna's direction. It's not functioning independent of Krishna. So, if one surrenders to the Supreme Personality Godhead, Krishna, and engages in devotional service, he is situated in his rightful position and can go further right up to liberation from the material world because of being engaged in devotional service. That's why it says, this material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. By its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. In this end of quote. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya gives it this note. The background of everything is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. And this can be understood by a Mahatma who is perfect in knowledge. Such a Mahatma is rarely seen. So, we have to become fully cognizant that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and not even a blade of grass moves without his sanction. then we are correctly understanding things in this world. Otherwise, we get mixed up in all kinds of speculations and cannot see the hand of Krishna in everything. That's why it says the background of everything is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Vasudeva Sarvam Iti Samahatma Sudurva. This can be understood by a Mahatma who is perfect in knowledge. Such a Mahatma is rarely seen. Yeah. So what how do you recognize the Mahatma? Well, he understands that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and everything is functioning under the control of Krishna. Therefore, he is not confused or in any way has any doubts, and because of that, he engages directly in Krishna consciousness, chanting, dancing, feasting, and so forth, and doesn't engage in speculation and all kinds of theories and so forth. There's no question of different theories. There's only one theory. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the purpose of life is to serve Krishna with love and devotion. Otherwise, there are thousands of theories. That's why it says here, the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Abheda, inconceivable oneness and difference, is the perfect philosophy enunciated by the Vaishnavas. Everything is an emanation from Krishna, but it is not that everything must be therefore. But it is not that everything must therefore be worshipped. Yeah, you worship Krishna, you don't worship everything. You don't worship the dog, right? The philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda, inconceivable oneness and difference, is the perfect philosophy enunciated by the Vaishnavas. Everything is an emanation from Krishna, but it is not that everything must therefore be worshipped. Yeah, you don't worship a dog, and you don't worship the dog do. You worship Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore it says, speculative knowledge cannot give us reality as it is, but will continue to be nefariously imperfect. So-called scientists try to prove that there is no God and that everything is happening because of the laws of nature. But this is imperfect knowledge, because nothing can work unless directed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita 9:10 by the Lord Himself. This material nature is working under my direction. There it is, right there. It's not under anybody else's direction. It's completely under the direction of Krishna, O son of Kunti. And it is producing all moving and non-moving, unmoving beings. By its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya gives this note. The background of everything is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurva. This can be understood by a Mahatma who is perfect in knowledge. Such a Mahatma is rarely seen. So there it is. If we just meditate on this verse, Mayat Akshena Prakriti Suyate Satcharacharam Hetananena Kontea Jagat Viparivartate. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving being. By its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya gives this note: Durgat Tattvad Atat Vena Parameshvara Naiva Kalpitam. The background of everything is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Vasudeva Samamiti Samahatma Sudurava. This can be understood by a Mahatma who is perfect in knowledge. Such a Mahatma is rarely seen. Okay? That means that if we accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and not even a blade of grass moves without his sanction, then we understand what's being spoken here. Whereas scientists and philosophers and speculators, they go down many different paths and people just get confused. And they're confused also. But if we just understand that it says here, the background of everything is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. There it is. That means that and nobody else is the background of what's happening in this world. And therefore, this can be understood by a Mahatma who is perfect in knowledge. Such a Mahatma is rarely seen. So, when we're convinced that not even a blade, a blade of grass moves without the sanction of Krishna, we become a Mahatma and we understand what is actually happening. Whereas speculators and mundane philosophers confuse everything and don't accept the existence of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, they are actually demoniac because they mislead people. There's so many people like that. Now you look at Elon Musk. He is confused, and he makes other people confused also. So we must stick strictly under the tutelage of Vaishnava acharyas and disregard all the speculators and so-called great philosophers in this material world. The greatest philosopher, the greatest guru is Krishna. So we shouldn't put our mind and senses on anything else except Krishna. That way we'll never be misled. That's why it says one can understand how Krishna's material and spiritual energies are working and how he is present everywhere, although everything is not him. This philosophy of Achintya Veda Aveda, inconceivable oneness and difference, is the perfect philosophy enunciated by the Vaishnavas. Everything is an emanation from Krishna, but it is not that everything must be therefore. And it is not that everything must therefore be worshipped. Yeah, exactly. We don't worship dogs. We don't worship nonsense people. So, and this phrase Achintya Beda Abeda. Inconceivable oneness and difference is the perfect philosophy enunciated by the Vaishnavas. Okay, thank you very much, my dear devotees. We will ponder this all day today and come back tomorrow fully satiated by Prabhupada's wonderful purports. Hari Bol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And we will stop right there. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Thank you very much.